Hey everybody, welcome to our Blackboard tour video for History 131. As you can see, this is our Blackboard page. Our landing page is the announcements. So again, every time you get an email from me, it's going to be an announcement. Like here's the first day of class welcome announcement. So over here on the left is what you're really going to want to focus on. A lot of these tabs are important. For example, the announcement references the Welcome to History 131 tab. So let's go ahead and click on that. Lots of important stuff in here. There's the welcome video again, the syllabus and Blackboard tour videos, which is where this video is. The syllabus, which we've gone over in the syllabus video. The reading breakdown. This I referenced in that syllabus video. The reading breakdown has everything that you're going to read and turn in throughout the semester. Okay, so the books are abbreviated. Give Me Liberty is GML, Voices of Freedom is VOF, Blackboard is abbreviated BB, and then there's a do section which tells you what to do that week. So here we are in week 1, and it's telling you to review all the housekeeping items in History 131, along with, this is included in that, right? And then participate in the Introduce Yourself discussion board by Sunday, and then take the enrollment verification quiz by May 22nd. Week 2, we begin to get into the actual course itself. So for example, for part 1, because each week is broken into 2 parts, try to make it a little bit more manageable. For part 1 of week 2, we're going to do natives in North America, Europe, and Africa. So we've got a Blackboard reading. It's through History Study Center. Instructions on how to access that are on Blackboard, where the letter is. A document that you can just click and open. Thomas Morton descriptions of natives, same as this one, and this one, and this one. So all the other ones are available for you there. Now, part 1 does not require anything from Give Me Liberty or Voices of Freedom because toward the beginning of that first full week, folks might still be getting their books. So all you need is lecture and these readings for part 1. Part 2 is when we're going to get into colonization and all of that kind of stuff. So you will have pages from Give Me Liberty. You will have documents. These are the document numbers. You can find them in that table of contents for Voices of Freedom. And then you will have due by the end of the first week a discussion board by Friday, May 24th at 11:59 p.m. And that discussion board has a question that covers the material from the entire week. Okay, so you've got lecture notes under both parts, readings under both parts, and then a discussion board in that week 2 folder that is comprehensive of everything that you've learned that week. And the entire semester is laid out that way in this reading breakdown, okay? So you've got broken into part 1, part 2, then you've got what's due. The first paper is going to be due at the end of week 3. It's going to be due May 31st. Okay. So as we keep going, you see it's broken up each week. Some weeks are a little bit shorter than others. Week 5, for example, after you've had the paper in week 3, and the exam in week 4, kind of backing off a little bit, giving you a breather. Week 5 is just covering establishing the Union. So you've got lecture videos, some readings, and a discussion board, but it's not as comprehensive as other weeks. Okay, like I said, we're moving at almost double a pace. So you're covering almost 2 weeks every week. This week and I think 1 or 2 other ones are the exception where I kind of backed off a little bit to give you a break after you did some of the larger assignments. So that's just kind of how this goes. You'll get reminders via email that things are due also. That's pretty much it. So that's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, of course, about that, let me know. So that's the reading breakdown. The next, discussion board FAQ, frequently asked questions about the discussion board. So these are things you're going to want to ask yourself before submitting your discussion board. And I've ordered them in, they're listed in order of importance. So what counts the most points-wise is first, okay? Discussion prompts have multiple questions some of the time. Does your post answer each question or each part of the prompt? Does it do so comprehensively? Have you fully answered it? That's the most important thing. Content, most important. Do you use the proper sources? You have to use Give Me Liberty. You have to use some sort of document, whether it's Voices of Freedom or one of the documents on Blackboard, and you have to use lecture in everything. All of those sources need to be in everything. So something from the book, something from the primary documents, something from lecture. It needs to be in the discussion boards. It needs to be in papers. It needs to be in the identification of the exams. So again, for discussion boards specifically, you have to use sources, okay? Did you cite your sources? Did you do so correctly, right? Everybody who's reading this should know what you're referencing, and then they can look back at it as well. So you have that How to Cite Your Sources video under week 1, so be sure to check that out. If you have any questions, let me know. Is your post organized and broken up into paragraphs? I have gotten so many discussion boards that are blobs. Very difficult to read, very unorganized, points kind of get jumbled, so make sure you have an introduction. You have body paragraphs. You are going chronologically, right? History, we're going chronologically. Don't go from, 1780 to 1650. That is not going to work. That's going to be confusing for everyone. Do you have a conclusion? Did you proofread, right? So many mechanical errors that proofreading can fix if you go back and read your work before you turn it in. Reading out loud helps as well. Sometimes if I write something and I have to turn it in quickly for work or anything like that, or if I'm sending an email, I will read it out loud to myself to make sure that I haven't made any errors, and then I will submit it. Lastly, did you comment on 2 students' posts? Your comments need to add to the conversation. You can't simply be like, oh, I agree, or good job. It's nice to agree. It's nice to compliment our classmates. You can do that. That is absolutely fine. I think that's great. But the comments have to carry the discussion forward in some way. Remember, this is taking place of an in-class discussion, in-person discussion. So those comments need to make up for that. You need to, I agree with your point about X, but I also found in this document that Y was a really important aspect of colonial New England. Something like that. You need to really dive in, and if you want to cite sources in the comments as you talk, that's awesome too. So again, make sure that you are commenting in a way that carries the discussion forward. So that's the discussion board FAQ. And again, once you read that, look it over, contact me with any questions. So that is that. Next on the welcome tab, we've got the primary document checklist. That is here. These are things that you just might want to think about when you're reading primary documents. Again, the primary documents are things that were written by people during the time period. For example, a speech by Powhatan, a letter from Abigail Adams. These are primary documents written by people who were living at the times that we're studying. Okay. So some of you may never have read primary documents before, and that's perfectly fine. This is an introductory class, so this is where we start doing that. What type of document is it? Is it a letter? Is it a diary entry? That's going to tell you maybe about some of the motives, some of the reasons why it's being written, who it's being written for, why does it exist, who wrote it, who's missing. If it's a document, if it's a letter, to someone's husband and there are no children in it, what does that say? Maybe about, their priorities or their life or, their family structure at that time. In addition to the main subject, what other kinds of information can be obtained from the document? We can learn all kinds of things about cultural practices in New England in a diary entry about slaughtering animals for food. You can learn all kinds of stuff. You can learn how the processing works, and yet maybe it's just a document on like what types of deer are in the area. But you can learn all kinds of other stuff in the document as well. What was the meaning of the document in its own time? What is the meaning to the reader today? Also important questions when we're talking about change, continuity, and contingency, those 3 C's I address in the syllabus. Those questions are important for that. And what does the document tell us about change in society? Maybe we're reading something on a shift in policy in terms of the treatment of indentured servants, or we're reading about the shift from indentured servants to a higher reliance on slaves. What does that tell us about change in society? Okay, so these documents have various values, and these questions may help you understand, a little bit more about the document and the person writing it and their circumstances as you read. Okay. 2 more handouts. There's this plagiarism handout that I talked about in the syllabus, and active and passive voice. This can help when it comes to writing. I will note probably some passive voice use in papers and things like that. You know, to say, I think of a quick example. It was the war that changed society. That's a passive example. War changed society. That is an active sentence. You can see how it's different, how the active is more charged. It's better to use active voice when you write papers. It gives the people you're writing about and the events you're writing about more agency and urgency. Okay, so that's the welcome tab, all right? The My Instructor tab. Hey, it's me. That was me at a wedding before I had any children, so you can see I look rested and youthful. Just some things about me. I got my MA and my BA at NC State. I love talking about history. I love baking. I love spending time with my family. I also go to conventions. I'm a huge geek. So all kinds of cool nerdy stuff about me. The assignments tab. This is going to be, you know, one of the main places you spend your time in on the Blackboard site. And as mentioned in the syllabus, everything is organized by week, okay? So if we go into week 1, there's the introduction, right? Here's that. If you click on that, there's that discussion board we talked about. That's what we're going to do by Sunday. Okay. So we can back out. Then if we go to week 2, this is where things start to we dive deep. Okay. So we've got week 2, part 1, week 2, part 2. There's the exam study guide for the first exam. I like to post the study guides 2 weeks in advance, so it'll be here and under week 4 when you actually take the exam. Then we've got our discussion board, which is going to address points from parts 1 and 2. Okay, so let's go into part 1. You've got the lecture outline. We're going to open that because I want to show you. Here, your lecture outlines all have keywords and discussion questions. You do not have to fill this out unless you want to. I provide this because everything on your exam comes from keywords. The best way to study for your exam, and this says it on your study guide, is to know the who, what, when, where, and so what of all the terms on the study guide. And all of the terms come from these keywords. They're bolded in the lecture notes as well. So it may help you to fill out the keywords as you listen to the lecture. You'll be more prepared for exams. You'll know more information when it comes to doing the discussion boards. So that's why these exist. So those keywords are of extra importance. The discussion questions are just some major, like, overarching questions, some broader topics that I'll address throughout the lecture. Okay. The lecture notes. This is actually the big document that I lecture from. And then the lecture videos. If you go in here, there they all are, broken up into small parts. So you watch those. And then the readings under part 1. And here, as previously mentioned, when we talked about the reading breakdown, the Columbus letter is here. That's in History Study Center. Here are written instructions on how to access that. Here's a video on how to access that if the written instructions are not enough. Before you contact me asking me how to get this, please read these instructions and look at the video and try to access it on your own. If you have done all of that and are still having difficulties, then please contact me and I will help you figure it out. Here's the how to cite your sources video I told you about, how to cite when you do discussion boards. So you want to check that out before you write your first discussion board. Okay. Week 2, part 2 looks much the same. We'll go in there real quick. You've got the lecture outline, the lecture notes, and the videos. Now you're reading in the books for part 2, right? So there aren't any documents here. You're going to read and Give Me Liberty and Voices of Freedom. And all the lecture videos are in that folder. Okay. So that is the assignments tab. And of course, if there's a major assignment due, it's also listed here in the under the assignment folder's week title. Okay. So just some information there. Okay. So lots of ways to know when things are due. So hopefully things won't sneak up on you. The syllabus, again, we've already seen it in the Welcome to History 131 tab, but it is also here if you need it there. The discussion board, you could go to this tab to do discussion boards if you want to. You could go in here. But again, they're also laid out in those appropriate week folders, so you could go to the weeks as well. Okay? Alright, so let's see. Gotta remember. A couple things you want to check out. If you go to the Student Academic and Technical Resources tab at the top of Blackboard, here's the information for JOLT. Here's the information for the Academic Skills Center and tutoring and help. Really great resources. If you need help, of course, talk to me first if you're struggling in the class, and then if we feel like maybe the Academic Skills Center is a good place for you, we'll head on over there. Campus safety. This tab tells us what to do in case of an emergency. Okay, so it's important that you review that as well. Okay? So that's pretty much it. Like, you can see the menagerie of classes I've got going on. But there you are. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the Blackboard site. If you have any questions, again, the My Grades tab, that's probably going to be where you spend a lot of your time checking on your grades. So, I think that's really pretty much it. If you guys have any questions about that Blackboard site or the tour or where you can find anything, please let me know. If you have any questions about what to do next week, please let me know. Remember to do your Introduce Yourself discussion board by this Sunday. I'll be popping in and out responding to students. I can't wait to get to know all of you, and I think we're going to have a great semester.